Hello, Robert John Burton, reading another script about my life with Asperger's. A trait of Asperger's in adults that most people believe they are familiar with is the lack of empathy. However, this is a misrepresentation of this characteristic. Lack of empathy in an individual with Asperger syndrome does not mean that the person is unable to have or express all emotions. Actually, that is far from reality, and people with Asperger's are able to have strong and deep feelings. Consider some of history's most noted people with Asperger's and see their strong emotional attachments. Mark Rothko and Andy Warhol were intense artists. Albert Einstein and Alan Turing endured difficulties convincing others of their theories. The challenge comes when the person on the autism spectrum is not being able to communicate or comprehend their feelings or the feelings of others. This is the theory of mind, where a child learns that others have different feelings and thoughts to themselves. But this develops slowly in certain autistic people, which inevitably leads to emotional experiences being cut off and some completely non-existent. I have no attachment to my family, and friends tend to have 4 legs. The difficulty or inability to immediately comprehend feelings, be it their own or someone else's, makes it incredibly hard for an individual with Asperger's to relate to others. This is why I had stops and starts in my professional activities. Intellectually I got it, but understanding the stream of people's emotional needs left me puzzled. The fact that many adults with Asperger's commonly live isolated, solitary lives is not to say that they do not desire social interaction. Mental health professionals have stated that in most cases these people need companionship, albeit with certain boundaries. However, adults with Asperger's tend to focus only on the things that interest them. Others' needs or interests are somewhere well over there. This does not come from selfishness, but rather out of the difficulty that comes with communicating and socialising with others. I did not have any good models in my youth to show me the way to personalised relationships. Any followers of this channel knows that I gave up on my useless parents when I was noticeably young. They were unreliable and very careless. The constant challenges of basic interaction in social situations lead adults with Asperger's syndrome to often live isolated lives. The other thing I soon discovered is that this attracts the attention of some folk, some who are concerned and some who are crazy makers. They are looking for narcissistic supply to bolster their emptiness. Big mistake with me. So that being said, and all things considered, sometimes an important person will come hurtling to crack the walls of your tower. This has happened to me a couple of times in my life, but few have left me leaving with the feeling I have lost a friend. This is different to losing someone permanently, as they have succumbed to a fatal condition, as did my friend David Seabird, who died of pancreatic cancer many years ago. He was my senior lecturer and head of painting when I was at the Queensland College of Art. David will remain an important influence and supporter of my artwork right up to his death. As he lived a long way away in Australian standards, it was non-line and long telephone conversations. I knew he was ill, but one day the phone calls had stopped, and I found out through the former head of art at Griffith University at the time he had died in palliative care. I miss him, but his life ended through natural cause. The sort of loss I mean is the type that takes years, if not decades, to understand. I thought someone was my friend, instead you made me an enemy. I have learned to distrust. I could watch the world burn and be happy. Anxiety changes a person's helter-skelter, speed of thought, speed of physical movement and speed of desire all change. Welcome to our pottery group, you said with a knockout European accent. Something was beginning here that would set the course of my life to its highs and to its depths of despair. I hung back, others chatted to you while I looked at the pottery. Some of it was good, some of it was outstanding, and in the front of the shop area was the collection of some fine ceramics collected through awards and donations. This was an important collection. All the time, I could feel your eyes searching me out. I introduced myself tentatively. It was as comfortable as sitting on hot bitumen. As I said before, there was something else in the air here, and it would eventually bring out the absolute best and worst out in me. Soon I was inviting you to use me. I rang you, and you thought not to use me directly. I gave you permission. Then I became the committee's general heavy lifter, your right-hand man, the new children's pottery teacher, seminar creator, the new artist in town, the person everyone came to when something was needed, explaining, surveyed, directed and decorated. The place was still, and is in many ways, a big country town. By the end of 1987, I had a full-time, partly paid position, with most of my income coming from pottery sales. My imaginative work sold well. Bold and brilliant things happened. I demonstrated with you and others in Australia's travelling bicentennial, displayed in major population centres. I exhibited shows around the state. I went with you as a northern participant in World Expo 88, held at South Bank, Brisbane, where you met my mad mother. She called you a bitch. You knew she was crazy. Then you wanted to have an extraordinary impact. This was an era with a high regard for extraordinary lives. You devised a travelling exhibition for ceramic artists. The planning stage required cleverness and some bravery on your side. You travelled thousands of kilometres to collect photographs and stories from interested potters in a pre-digital age. Eventually, the then curator from the Australian National Gallery selected 13 artists. I was one to create 32 art works for the exhibition. These pieces travelled to 17 regional galleries, a big deal then and still so, to those who know about such things. The largest travelling exhibition of regionally sourced ceramics that had ever been, and still to this day, and has not been beaten in scale and cost. Out of the North travelled for 3 years. Sadly, most pottery associations, as many small social clubs of any kind, will be facing a crisis of confidence in the new decades of burgeoning online media. The group could not compete with an individualistic and imaginary online existence. Sometimes change happens slowly so you can catch your breath and adjust to the new normal. And sometimes things just happen in the blink of an eye. Sometimes you are in the right place at the right time, brilliant accidents of timing. Sometimes you are in the worst possible place and there is no time at all. Change was happening all around the world. Artwork went everywhere. Members went elsewhere. Movement was the theme as new art hubs formed. We left too. Community work is both rewarding and exhausting. You knew I had communication problems, too blunt, too offhand, too sensitive and ready to bite. Lone wolves do. Others played games with my head. You could be very demanding, but I did not want to see it. You did not see my Asperger's before I did. I was reacting to how the relationship was before, or at least how I thought it was before, rather than responding to how it had changed. Years later, after too many crazy makers whom I had never met or were hidden in plain sight, I gave up. I broke. Just games with them. Later I understood it was to uphold lies that I could not defend myself against. The mental damage done has stopped my ability to make artwork commercially since. Further, other unwarranted attacks from my mother's proxies a long way away undermined my connection to important organisations. I did not know who to trust. Apparently everyone wanted me, but only their way. But I can only be me, and the demands of banter, eye contact, and unstated rules were not for me. Some people can lie without conscience because they hide amongst the group. There's no one to point the finger directly at. So I went to seek help, but everyone had secret conversations about me, breaking confidences that damaged me badly. When I realised because they were not as clever as they thought, I left and went to university. It was a growing away, not only from certain people, it was a distancing from place and lifestyle. I fell out with everything. I gave everyone more credence than was offered to me. I have never hurt anyone purposely in my life, certainly never physically as I have been. Even my insane mother got years from me before the tolerance account was overdrawn. You were extremely ill. You had a terminal illness. I knew from the AIDS crisis what a deadly disease would eventually lead to. You would die later as my mad mother and violent father did. My half-sister had from a stroke, calls from complications with the medications. You were blind at the end. For all of this, I'm terribly sorry. You had become an important citizen who opened a couple of my big exhibitions. Then it slowly turned to abrupt phone calls and hostile visits. Did it act like a sedative for pain relief? By 2002, our relationship was finished. You were falling out with me and your body. I had no feelings about it. Just the question why. I now understand. I have sympathy, but empathy is missing. I could not give you what you wanted because I could not translate my own physical and life disasters into understanding yours. Only now am I understanding a lot of my feelings. Things were complicated by mean words, and only later did I realise how much so. I became incredibly angry. Another mean person, another ungrateful person. My work meant nothing when it meant everything for me. I was nothing. You left me with no legacy, something often common to your generation. People who blame baby boomers should realise they were dominated by an older cohort. Denied a continuing future, you were partly responsible for making me useless to myself and others. As you were near the same generation as my parents, perhaps you thought to treat me like the bad son. You had no right to do that. Your own family knew you too. They often got angry with you, but like me, we were gentle because you were ill. The same problem with my mother, another crazy woman who I could not communicate with because of some medical problem. Crazy Daisy was mad. You were mad with me. No one wanted to intercede for me, who was on my side. I was invisible. There were no shared friends. My confidence, a fragile affair at any time, was plummeting. You were careless with my opinions. Your opinions were demanding and overbearing. We were counterparts in a lose-lose situation. I was a guest in your home. We had many phone calls to exchange ideas. I removed the coconut tree that bothered you. I made stuff for your adult children. So after you attacked me in my home, I really gave up on you. You had crossed my boundaries. And you were the forgetting type. You forgot what I was to you. Unnecessary dispersions on my abilities and associations, but denied when confronted. Selective memory. No one is perfect. You would die peacefully and be buried without me knowing. A friend for 15 years. Knowing nothing, worth nothing, rejected, outclassed. No longer any use. Goodbye. Rest in peace. This is my life. Thank you for listening.